All right.
Oh, I have to
Okay.
press continue.
So I am so excited because I get to introduce Michael Levine, and we actually had you on one of our master classes quite a few years ago. And then I remember when Claybaugh interviewed you on his masters, and just you're incredible. And I cannot wait for people to get to know you and to meet you if they don't know you already. Of course, you have to follow Michael Levine Hair on Instagram, also michaellevinehair.com. Follow him, all of his blogs, and then his salon is spacesalon.ca. And then he has a couple salons, and he has a couple cosmetology schools in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. And his website is vancouverhairacademy.com. And I love, first of all, the fact that one of your newest seminars is when to call it quits, how to close your salon. And I think how apropos right now in 2021, Michael, that we need to hear that story as well. But first, before we do that, I just want to hear a little bit of your story about how you even got into the salon business and then how you got into the school business.
Okay, cool. I think that's great. I think that's so important for all of us, because most of us, I think, who got into the salon ownership had similar beginnings. So I think there's going to be people who can relate to this. So for me, primarily when I got into becoming a hairdresser, it was more for the lifestyle. I didn't really understand, I didn't know the possibilities, but I liked the lifestyle. I would see my hairdresser having cute girls come in and bring him a coffee and give him a kiss on the cheek and invite him to parties, and he was listening to good, fun music, and he, behind, but he would be doing hair, but then he'd take his water bottle and turn it into stream, and then he'd shoot the hairdresser next to him, and they'd have these little mini water fights that the clients didn't even know about. And there's just like, it just like, this is how I want to live. People telling me I'm wonderful, giving me a kiss, inviting me to parties, having little water fights, and listening to cool music, and getting to kind of dress fun. So that was why I became a hairdresser. Literally, that was it.
Hilarious.
Then I went to hairdressing school, and it was like, whoa. It was like the worst day. My day one of hair school was like the worst day of my life. I wanted to cry. They basically, day one, I walked in, I was the only boy, which that's not a problem. But it was like 20 girls and nobody's really talking to me. They're all kind of looking at me like I'm weird. And the head of the school handed me a mannequin, with the traditional perm wrap, with the mohawk and then the down the sides. And then she showed me how to put in one rod, and then handed me the mannequin with the one rod and said, now make this mannequin look like this mannequin. And then they left me alone for like 8 hours
Oh,
and
wow.
didn't talk to me. And, so I got through. Like 6 hours later, I do the world's worst perm wrap, like, and because no one's even taught me how to put in a rod. They just showed me and then walked away. So I do the world's worst perm wrap, and I show it to her, and the rods are all askew, and I've got hair from one zone totally tied into a rod from the other zone. And she goes, now take it out and do it again. And this actually ties into why I opened a school, and a lot of my school philosophy, which we'll get to in a second. But anyways, so I took them out. It was hard to take them out because the hair is all tangled from wrong rods. And then I take it out, and of course the hair is now in this massive dreadlock mess. And so I'm trying to brush it out with or comb it out with a comb, and because no one's told me what tools to use to detangle hair. And I can't get this thing detangled to do it again. So I'm stupid. So I take it, and I think maybe rinsing it under water will help. And mannequin hair is so thrashed anyways. So now it turns into this giant dreadlock. And I show it to the teacher. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? And she goes, yeah, we knew that was going to happen. We just let you do it. And I'm just like, and I wanted to cry, and I never wanted to come back. And it was literally the worst day of my life. Not one cute girl came in and gave me a coffee or a hug or a kiss and told me I was wonderful. And I'm like, this is not what I signed up for. But I stuck with it, and I continued through to hairdressing school, and I became okay at doing little old lady sets, right? Because that's all we had. The Handy Dart, which is a bus service in Vancouver, goes to the old folks' homes and picks the ladies up and takes them to their appointments. And that was, 3 times a day, people would be coming in on their walkers from the bus, and we would be servicing them. And I finished through hairdressing school. I was pretty good because I was somewhat charming, and I love little old ladies. Like, I was so close with my grandmother. And so I got through and I thought, okay, I'm good. I'm ready to go join the salon industry. I'm ready to go, because not only did the school ill-equip me for the realities of hairdressing, they also told me that I was ready to work in any salon. And I graduated hair school without having put in a single foil, like not
Wow.
one foil. And so I got out into the salon industry, and it was a crushing rude awakening. So after toiling for about a year, I decided to take a step back and I became an apprentice. I got a job at a salon that had a level system and a tier system to get through. And they had a kind of, I didn't know all of this stuff. I didn't know this is what I needed. I just knew I needed a mentor. I knew I needed somebody who would guide me. I couldn't do it alone. So I went and I got a job at this fabulous salon that was just on the verge of opening their third location. They had about 50 people and they were very renegade and very cool. And I'm just going to say who they were. But they were a salon company in Vancouver called Axis. And they had an amazing education director and a team. And there was a bit of snobbery and you had to dress it up a little bit. And the salons were gorgeous. And I immediately walked into the type of place that allowed me to become the person that I am today. And I ended up thriving in that environment. But, and then here's the big thing, and where most salon owners will share this similar story. At some point, I thought the owner was taking half my money. You know, I was a high earner in the salon and I was teaching classes for them. But at some point, the owner and I kind of butted heads, and I won't get too into that, but we butted heads a little bit. And I was like, well, he's taking half my money anyway, man. Not realizing that he has taken all the risk on me, trained me, developed me, put me on stages eventually, given me opportunities to teach, which is the fastest way to grow, is to teach. And he's done all these things for me. And he didn't make a penny off me for those first 18 months, as I'm working my way up before I'm finally earning living. And then the greed and being egocentric kind of came in, and I just, I left and I opened my own salon because I thought I was smarter. I thought I could do it better. And part of me, and this is an interesting one too, I was in this big company with a big culture, and there's lots of gossip and all that kind of stuff, as tends to happen in large salons. There's drama and, just whenever you have a large group dynamic, there's stuff going on. And I said to myself, I don't want any of that drama. I just want to take care of my clients in this small, intimate environment. So I opened this salon with my girlfriend at the time, who I'm now married to for 22 years, and we have two wonderful boys. So it worked out. But we had this tiny little salon, and what did we do? We immediately started to try to recreate what we had just left. And to this day,
Wow.
I feel so strongly with my own company. I look back on the 3 years that I spent with this company as kind of the best 3 years of my life.
Yeah.
As I was dealing with all that, like at the time I couldn't see it for how amazing it was. But now looking backwards, and when I talk to the people that I worked with 20 years ago or 22 years ago back then, they all say the same thing. And they all talk so nostalgically about that time, but they all left that salon. And I think part of the reason that they left that salon, myself included, is because the owner was amazing at a lot of things. But the one thing he wasn't really good at was he was very emotional, like I am. But he wasn't really good at conveying the big picture. And he wasn't really good at sitting down and calmly talking about perspective and talking about your path. And I think that was something that for me, that now I try to make sure that's part of what I do. But even then I'm really guilty of not doing it. And I think a lot of salon owners don't do it. But anyways, we started our salon with 2 people and we got really busy. So we hired an assistant, trained the assistant, and knowing that assistant is going to want to do hair at some point. So we had to eventually give her a chair and then train another assistant. And we grew our business from 2 people to 50 people by never training or never hiring anybody with a book, ever.
Wow. Yes.
So we had this amazing culture where everybody started at the ground floor in our company. Everybody started by sweeping the floors, and cleaning the baseboards and hands and knees stuff. And they started doing that because they saw my wife and I doing that same thing. We led by example.
Yeah.
And we created this culture, not even like I tried to do everything by the book, you know, by the E-Myth book, which was sort of my only guide to business. My only guide to business was the E-Myth and my past experience in trying to create this amazing culture, but also fix the things in that business that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
And that was what we did. And eventually, as I said, we were training our own staff. We had classes every week. What ended up happening, the catalyst for me opening academies was I was doing these classes every Wednesday night and standing there teaching people how to do hair, teaching people who had never held scissors before how to do hair. And I remember I had these 3 amazing young stylists that I had developed, and I'd put on the floor, and I put them on the floor within 6 months. None of them have ever held scissors, and we'll talk to how I was able to do that in later if you'd like. But they all left within 18 months. And I realized that 6 months of my life was gone and wasted. And I thought, I can't keep getting, first of all, I'm emotionally attached to these people. I love them. I'm standing there helping them, you know, teaching them which finger to put the scissors in. I'm doing all this stuff and I like them a lot. And then they leave me and I get my heart broken because I'm, you know, I'm invested emotionally in every one of my employees. And I just thought I have to take the emotional component out of my training. So, and I didn't, you know, I don't think it's legal for a business to charge their employees to train them. I don't think so. So we went to work in opening an academy, and it took us about a year of jumping through the hoops with the government to create our academy. And we built our academy solely based on my apprenticeship program, which my apprenticeship program was designed to develop people and get them ready for the salon industry as quickly as possible. Yeah. So we cut through all of the stuff that we deemed as not necessary. And we taught them the skill set to get onto the floor in a salon and operate at a reasonable level, you know, because you're not going to teach people to be superstars and, you know, right away, it takes time, but at a reasonable level where they're not screwing people's hair up, you know, and then we're going to get paid for it. So that if they don't want to work for me, great. And if they do want to work for me, great.
Oh my God.
That's where we are today. Now, lots have happened since then as well.
Yes, I know. You've been doing amazing things. And so again, follow Michael Levine. He's michaellevinehair.com. Don't miss out on that. But Michael, you were telling me earlier before we got on the call, and I didn't even realize this, that Canada has deregulated themselves from having to get a license, right, in Canada the past 15 years. So talk a little bit about that, because I know in the United States, most of my listeners are from the US, that we've been fighting that, you know, of not wanting to be deregulated, right? Because we're nervous about what could happen to the public. So can you talk a little bit about that, what that's been like the past 15 years?
So it's only British Columbia. The rest of Canada is still regulated. It's just BC. And it does create a barrier if somebody wants to leave the province.
Yes.
You know, and we always tell our students, our enrollment students, like we always ask them what their plan is, because we'll get people from other provinces trying to come into our school. And I go, unless you want to stay here for 2 years after school to build up your hours to challenge the national exam, you're going to struggle. So,
Gotcha.
But basically when hairdressing became deregulated, it was actually the right thing for us at that time. And the reason was, this sounds awful, but our governing body in British Columbia was totally corrupt. Yeah. And I mean, there was scandals, like the head of the thing was taking bribes. It was crazy. Wow. So it was nuts. And a lot of this stuff was coming to light at the time. And our premier, which would be the governor, that would be the equivalent of the governor. Our premier in British Columbia, I think he just realized, he just said, does the government need to be involved in hairdressing?
Okay.
And when you kind of put it that way, it's kind of easy to say, well, do they really? You know, our industry has always been self-regulating. There's been, you know, you're in a heavily regulated place. There are people that will succeed and people that don't. There's people who suck and will not survive. And it, you know, it doesn't mean everybody can't overcome sucking, but a lot of people don't, you know, generally you come out of hair school and you kind of suck. And if you know you suck and you want to fight through that, then you will become a successful hairdresser. But, you know, I knew when I finished hairdressing school, I didn't know I sucked until about 2, 3 years later. And then I realized, holy smokes, I was awful. And that's how it is for most
Yeah.
most hairdressers, you know, and because you have this false sense of, you know, inflated sense of ego. And really, I thought, yes, I learned a lot from hairdressing school. I absolutely did. But there was a lot of wasted time. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't learn. So with deregulation, you know, yes, there's some risk for sure. And it does allow kind of renegade hair activity to happen. But I feel like that's always been happening. I feel
Yeah.
like there's been,
It
you know,
never
gray
did.
market business going on forever.
Right.
And I do think, like, you know, just because we had regulation didn't mean that people weren't getting their hair screwed up.
Yeah.
You know, it was still happening.
Right.
So you know, 15 years later, the sky did not fall. There have been pros and cons. And I probably would never have opened a school had we had regulation. But this definitely cleared a path for me to write my own curriculum. And I think that was a big part of why it appealed to me. And with deregulation, it allowed me to create a 6-month program. We do our program 6 months, it's 600 hours, but we have our students cutting hair within 2 hours of the first day. And my philosophy as a school owner, and I'm present in my schools, I'm not as present as I would like to be, but I am fairly present. But I always tell my students on their day one that my goal is to teach them, I want my ceiling to be their floor.
Yeah.
So my whole curriculum is based on the stuff that took me years to understand and to avoid pitfalls. And my whole agenda is I want them to bypass that first year of screwing up. Because, you know, as a young hairdresser, you have a few bad days. You have a client in your chair that's crying because you've gone too short or too dark, or, you know, that kind of stuff. And a client is sitting there telling you you've butchered their hair. You know, those, and you're making minimum wage and you're toiling away. Those bad days are what caused so many people to leave this industry. So what my goal is to teach these students not necessarily to be superstars, but how to avoid those bad days or keep them to a minimum. I teach them, I'd much rather have, like, we have a motto in our schools and in my life as a hairdresser: too long and too blonde. Nobody ever cries if it's too long or too blonde. You know, those are easy fixes. But too short and too dark, those things will, like, that's what causes a Yelp review, a bad one. So we kind of teach really common sense hairdressing and real nuts and bolts kind of stuff. We don't get too fancy. We just teach them to do reasonably decent hair and let them know you are not going to be a superstar. Some of them become superstars very quickly, and that's what's so cool about the industry today. It's a lot different than it was when I was coming up.
Yeah.
But that's what we do. And the other thing that's really great with not having government regulation for my schools is it allows us to pivot our curriculum whenever we want.
Yeah.
You know, we get rid of things and add things constantly.
Right.
And it makes it a really dynamic, I mean, you know, the industry has changed so much in the last decade that, you know, we don't necessarily need to be teaching skip waves and finger waves anymore. Although I sure wish I could do finger waves. I used to be really good, and now I'm like, God, now I can't remember how to do this. But anyways, so that's why now we have schools. And what I like as a salon owner, and I think Paul Mitchell does a lot of this as well, where you'll often see people with their hands in kind of both ends of the industry, in the school industry and in the salon industry. It definitely allows you some really, really wonderful positives. First, it keeps a pulse. It allows your school to stay relevant, but it also allows you to draw new talent into your company without, you know, as I said, I'm training people to work for me. So when I get those people, and I don't always get them, but I don't always get the best ones. I don't always get the ones that I want. You know, sometimes they're like, I am sick of you from the last 6 months. I don't want to go anywhere near you anymore. But when I do get those people, they're prepared to work for me. And I think that's pretty wonderful. And it's worked out well for us. But at the same time, we've also shrunk our business a lot. We were at 50 people. I think we're now at about 25. We've closed a salon. We've closed our freestanding schools. And I'm happy to talk about, you know, you touched on my last seminar, which is when to call it quits, because the reason is I had closed a salon right then or just before that. And I'd had massive staff walkout. And I was like, it was literally the worst phase of my business life. And my personal life was suffering as well, because, you know, when there's stress in your work, and my wife is my business partner, and things were so bad at work, um, through 100% my fault, but things were so bad at work, that it trickles through the rest of your life and you're just miserable. So as I navigated closing a salon, and thankfully I was able to draw on some really wonderful mentors in the industry, I reached out to David Wagner. I don't know if you guys know
Yes.
who
Love
David
David
is.
Wagner.
He's
Yes.
amazing. But I'd never spoken to him before, but way back in the day, I came out of the Aveda culture in the 90s.
Yeah.
And so I had maybe met him once, and I reached out to him. I said, David, I have a problem. And I think you might be one of a few people that could help me solve this. And is it okay? And he actually, like, we spoke on the phone for about an hour as we kind of worked through pros and cons of what I was trying to do, which was close the salon.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. And I was just so happy to be able to draw. And I don't think David knew any, like, at the time I had kind of a voice in the industry. I was doing weekly blogs for American Salon Magazine, and my own kind of blog had taken off. And I don't think David knew who I was, but the fact that he took this phone call, and by the way, this is also why I am always available to anybody who ever wants any advice from me, because if David Wagner has time for a nobody like me, I have time for everybody. And you know what? And Van Council also, I spent an hour on the phone with Van,
Amazing.
just totally as an aside, just on how to reopen our salon after COVID, after we were shut down, because Atlanta had opened, Georgia was one of the first states to open. So I was like, I don't know Van, I've met him once, but 25 years ago I met him, and I called him and I talked on the phone with him for like 90 minutes. It was the greatest thing in the world. It's like, oh, these are the best people in the world. So anyways, as an aside, but
oh my gosh.
So I navigated closing a salon. Wow. And I realized that this is an area that nobody talks about. Nobody talks about it.
Everybody's afraid to talk about it, I think.
Oh my God, all these seminars are about success and abundance and joy. And it's like, no, man, this issue or this industry is crushing. It is soul crushing. And it is, if you are high today, unless you work so hard to stay there, you are going to come down at some point. And, you know, and I can talk till I'm blue in the face about staying on top, but you're going to probably come down at some point, you know, unless you build this amazing culture and amazing business, which I thought I had. I thought I had it all. And I realized that I didn't. I realized I did really well in this industry. I got wealthy, not wealthy. I was rich. I did well, and it still came down. I did everything right, and it still came down. So I thought, let's talk about this. Let's take the shame out of this, because I'm ashamed of myself. And the way I can help navigate through this is helping people realize that you're not alone when you're struggling, and when you have a staff walk out. Let's talk about this, and let's talk about, hey, if we're gonna sink or swim, and there's no shame in either of those things. But here's how to swim and get out of it, you know, with the least amount of exposure possible. And if you want to, how to sink. And if you want to swim, here's what you need to do. So that's what I talked about. And so in my seminar on how to close a salon, I did touch on both things. I was like, you got to make a choice, and here's what you do in this choice, and here's what you do in the other choice. And it was, you know what, it was really powerful. I've only run that seminar once. It was to a packed house, and I had so many people come up to me, go, oh my God, this was the greatest thing I've ever seen. And then kind of COVID happened. So I haven't been able to share it again, but I'm so looking forward to it.
Well, you need to share it again, because I think we're at a crossroads right now. And I've been saying that COVID really separated the players from the pretenders, you know, and also kind of like what you were saying, like whether or not I should close my salon or not. And I'm coaching so many salon owners right now, Michael, and many of them have said, you know what, I think it might be time to close my salon. I think it might be time to sell it. And so can you talk about maybe like your top 3 ways, so someone listening right now might say, yeah, I think that might be me. Maybe I better hire a coach right now to walk me through this process. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think the coach thing is so important, and it's something I am so difficult and stubborn. It's something that I've never actively done. I've always kind of looked to my coaching and mentoring kind of from the sidelines, because in a weird way, for a lot of people, I'm a business kind of guy. I don't want to say a guru, but for a little while I was kind of that guy, and I run these success seminars. So I didn't want to say, I, I have a coach, but God, I wish I had a coach.
Yeah.
And some of the best salon owners I know have had coaches, currently have coaches, and then are imparting that same knowledge that they've learned from their coach. Whereas for me, I just fly by the seat of my pants. And I just realized that that's not any way to do these things. But anyway, so to answer your question, first of all, like you've got to look at your situation and what are you prepared to do as a business owner in order to get out of what your situation is. If your situation is like most people, where you're just stagnant, you're already dying and you don't know it.
Right.
If you're stagnant, then you're dying, because in business, there's only two ways you can go. You're either growing or you're dying.
Right.
So for me as a business owner, we've always tried to keep growing. And a lot of it is, one step forward, two steps back at times, but you have to persevere. So you have to look at it and going, okay, and go, where am I in my own life? Do I have the energy to keep fighting? If not, am I prepared to put the people in place in my business and empower them to help me? Because this is a big thing for salon owners. Most salon owners are like me. They were busy, successful hairdressers in a salon. They thought they could do it better, so they opened their little salon, and they never really had a vision for growth. And what they have to understand is you might be successful for a little while. You probably will. You might have a couple of people join your team. Say you've got like the 6-chair salon and this is your fantasy and you love it. Well, if you lose one person, you've lost, 18% of your team in one person walking out the door. And then you're constantly struggling to fill that team. And if you don't have systems in place to develop new talent to take those chairs and to grow, even if you never intend on growing, you have to build your business plan based on growth. Yeah. You have to constantly be pushing. And if you're not going to do that, what's going to end up happening? You're going to get like me, where you grew to a point, you thought you start resting on your laurels a little bit, and you go, I have achieved it, I've arrived. And then you kind of stop driving the car, to stop driving the bus. And then you lose a few people, and then now you're left scrambling. And not only that, and this is where I'm in my 50s, I don't have the energy that I had when I was 30.
Right.
And I live an hour away from my salons now because, I've got kids, I have other things. So I came to this place where I'm like, I don't know if I have the fight left in me anymore. Right. I don't know if I have that swim kind of thing. And so I have to look in the mirror and say, what do I offer as a leader? What can I offer? And if I don't have the things anymore that I used to have that helped me get here, there's a great book that I read a long time ago, and just the title of the book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
And I thought I need to pivot. And what I ended up doing was hiring amazing managers. Yeah. Because I thought these are the people who are going to now allow me to do what I want to do. Which is be creative and have fun and not have hard conversations with people anymore. I'm tired of being the bad guy. I'm sick of it. I've been the bad guy for hundreds of people in my city, right?
Exactly.
It's hard. If you were to, as an aside, I tell my students in my school to not use my name on their resumes. Yeah. My personal name. You put the school on there. Don't use my name, because I probably have baggage in this city for people. I have impacted a lot of people positively and probably a lot of people who have a, negative. I don't want to be that guy anymore. I don't want to weigh you down if you put my name on your resume, but,
so funny.
So I've had a couple of really wonderful managers, but as everybody here knows, it's hard to find just like it's hard to be a good salon owner. You got to put in work. It's hard to find good managers. First of all, you got to pay them.
Yeah.
You got to pay them. And if times are tough for you and you don't have the money, that's a big barrier to people. So I'll tell you what happened with us. We had an amazing manager, and it allowed me to be crazy, and it allowed me to grow because it allowed me to focus on things, and the manager took care of my details. I would say to the manager, her name was Courtney, and I loved her. I would say, Courtney, this is what my vision is. This is what I would like to do. And within a couple of days, she would have 3 kind of paths for me with the numbers worked out and the details worked out. And it would, this is stuff that I used to do myself as a micromanager. And now all of a sudden I didn't have to micromanage anymore. I had somebody else to do that. And it was so powerful. But when I lost her because I couldn't pay her eventually. I mean, I
Right.
just couldn't pay her enough.
Right.
And it took me probably 4 years to find another manager that was at her level. And in that time, my business was chaos because I had this rotating door of managers, and I was frustrated. My frustration trickled down to my team, and I was unhappy. And you know, everything starts from the top, right? Like, you know, everything starts from the
Yeah.
top. And I always say to my people, like, if you're going to take credit for your successes, you have to take blame for your failures.
Yeah.
Everything was me, even though I was pointing my fingers at my staff, going, if they would just, you know, work like all these things. I love Robert Cromian. He's one of my heroes. And I actually credit him for helping me take my business from 5 people to 25 people over the course of, you know, 18 months, just solely by listening to The Art of Making Money 20 odd years ago.
Amazing.
That was my Bible. And I'm not sure where I was going with that. Oh yeah. And in that, one of the things he said, every time you point a finger, there's 3 pointing back at you.
Right.
And I really take that to heart, but it's a hard thing with your egos. You'll notice that I ramble. But anyways, so it took me, finally, I got a new manager who had vision, and she had the courage to stand up to me, which was really, really good. And I said, I'm going to empower her to do everything that she wants to do in my business. I'm going to give her, I like her so much, and I like her ideas, that I'm going to stop standing in front of her. I'm going to stop putting my vision as the primary thing here, because it's time for me to empower somebody to take my business to the next place. And she was incredible. And then she went on maternity leave.
Oh,
and I'll tell you, right before she left, I remember I had a staff meeting, and I was like, I love what's going on in here. I love our growth. And this is post-COVID. We pre-COVID, things were hard. Post-COVID, we had grown our business. We had a bunch of new blood. We had a really wonderful energy. And when she left, people started leaving. Wow. Because I didn't have somebody in position. And this is where I am today. Yeah. Right now, we're at this where we've had so many highs and lows. You know, having that leadership in the salon, you know, 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, is so crucial. And I can't do it because I have multiple locations. I have my hand in so many things. And right now I'm looking for another manager while she's on maternity leave, because in Canada, maternity leave is a year.
Oh my gosh. As it should be, right?
It should be, but not as a business owner. It's brutal.
That's rough. Oh my gosh. You said something so there's so many ways we can go on this conversation. And I know we're already almost running out of time, unfortunately. But oh my gosh, you said I didn't have someone in position. And, you know, Sean and I teach a course called Next Level Salon Leadership. It's a 6-month business and leadership course. And part of that is fixing your leadership. And so I want to stay on that a little bit, because we call it in our companies, our salons and our schools, building a bench. And so we started right in our schools with our leadership teams that we train. We have student council, we have leadership team, and we start to have co-directors. And we're like, you need to start looking for the next leader. Before you leave, you've got to leave this place, first of all, better than you found it. And second of all, you need to bring somebody up. And I love what you said earlier. I want my ceiling to be their floor. I want you to tie that into that, because that's so huge. Because if we can train our leaders to think that way, right? So who's your leader that you're raising up, right? We could change the course of this entire industry. We could change the fact that people want to shut down their salons, because now they've got leaders running them. They have people in place, like we're not micromanaging anymore, right? So if we could shift our mindset as leaders. So talk a little bit about that journey for you and to salon owners, because I think many times people are like, almost like hanging on to their people. But like you said earlier, in the Access salon, the owner, right, he didn't have vision. He didn't give vision of like, this is your career path. This is the potential. And as a leader, I'm sorry, you've got to have that vision. You have to see more and more before your people, because you've got to always be 2-3 steps ahead and training people to continue to rise with you. Right? So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the area that, as I touched on earlier, where I had to really look in the mirror and say, of course I have the ability, but I don't know if I have the willingness to be the leader the type of leader that my business needs. This is where so many people have this disconnect. They have this vision of what their business should be, but they don't want to put in the work, or they don't want to make the investment.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like that in a weird way. So part of me over the last couple of years, when things were really, really bad, I was like, I have to make this investment. Yet I personally, I have to look at also what my own quality of life is. And for me, quality of life has been a really, really big thing the last couple of years. You know, as I want to enjoy my business again. And so a big part of that was finding leadership within my company, so that, like, with this as we said, my previous employer, he had taken it to just this place, but then he constantly had this turnover when people got to a certain level. And I have been fighting that result because I've had that myself, where I don't have this path for people. And right now I have the most amazing employee, and she constantly keeps me on my toes, because I owe it to her to give her a path. I owe it to her to help her have the life that she wants through hairdressing within my business. Mm-hmm. And that's my main obligation. That needs to be my obligation for my entire team, to help them have the life that they want to have through hairdressing while being profitable employees within my business. And what is that going to take from me in order to make that happen? And first of all, a career path is everything. But also talking to people, and this is where my former employer kind of failed, and this is what my business originally was, I was trying to pigeonhole everybody into my mold. Yeah. And today more than ever, our business it's not like Vidal Sassoon, where everybody has to fit the exact same mold. I wish it was, because that's easy. Yeah. Right? Because when people just don't cut it in that mold, you just get rid of them and get somebody else who does, because there wasn't a lot of options. Today, there are a lot of options for your employees. There are so many ways for people to go. And not only that, and I'm totally off topic here, and I'm not even covering what you just talked about.
I know. No, this is
I'm so sorry.
This is everything. It's everything.
But your employees are taking so many of their cues from social media, hairdressers. They have other influences. It used to be so easy to run a cult in your business. Right? You know, the first 4 letters of culture are cult, and that's what we wanted. Yeah. And it was so easy, this drink Kool-Aid kind of mentality, and it can't be that way anymore. It has to be about connecting with people personally and finding out what their goals are, and then helping them to achieve that within your business. And if that means, you know, working 2 days a week while earning the money of a 5-day-a-week employee, like, we have to allow those paths for people. But a big part of this is communicating with people and finding out what they want and giving them a voice, and knowing that they're heard, and knowing that they're understood, and knowing that they have you as a sounding board. And that was a big part of, for me, when I was able to step away from micromanaging my business and being so consumed with things, I had no time for people. And I think this has been one of the more valuable things, is now when I sit down with my employees, and I still don't have enough one-on-ones, I still don't have those dialogues. My wife is really, really good at that. But I don't have I'm not as good as I should be. But those one-on-ones, as you know, as a leader, the best thing that you can do is spend your time finding out what your employees' goals are and helping them get there. Because if not, they're going to get their goals from other people. They're going to take their cues from other people. And there's a big movement in our industry for independent hairdressing. We know I personally think it's a cancer. And I mean, that's a whole nother subject. No disrespect to people who are independent. I understand why they want to go that way. But the reason they want to go that way is very often because they don't have somebody listening to them, helping them, guide them to giving them the same type of income and the same flexibility in their hours. And that's been a big thing for me, is how can I create the salon environment that I would want to work in, that I would want to stay in long term? And people really don't, they allow what their vision for their business to be really black and white, and it is kind of gray. You have to have standards. You have to have your deal breakers. You have to have your, we can't do these things, but you also have to understand that times are different and people have different goals, and people aren't going to be as committed to their careers. And we also, there's so many women in this industry, and at some point, so many women want to have children. And how are we going to support them? I've lost so many staff when they go off on maternity leave because they don't want to try to come back into the salon and rebuild a book, because like I said, in Canada, they're gone for a year.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's really hard for them to rebuild
Wow.
a book. So how can I help them come back?
Yeah. Do
And,
they have
how
to
can
be
I
gone
give
for
them
a
the
year?
flexibility? Pardon me?
I said, do they have to be gone for a year? Can you get
They
your
all do because they get paid.
Oh, wow.
The government pays
It's
them.
amazing. Yeah. It's kind of like what we've been going through this past year. I don't know about Canada, but in America, everybody's been getting paid. So now everyone's looking to hire people. I mean, you see signs everywhere, and you see, even like franchises, like coffee places shutting down in the middle of the day because they don't have enough staff.
It's wild.
The lines are long. It is wild. We're in for a wild ride for this next year for sure.
And who knows where it's going to go? Like for this next year, so many people think that we're out of it.
Yeah.
But we're not. And I consider myself blessed and lucky.
We're in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I consider myself so lucky that one of the key things for COVID for me is my school enrollment is up.
Yeah.
As people are rethinking their lives. So I'm just like, okay, my salon situation has not been as positive, but we're growing.
Yeah.
But my school situation has allowed us a little bit more cash flow. And, if there's anything I can leave somebody with that's so crucial is when times are tough, get your butt back into your salon and start developing young talent and being a mentor to people.
Yeah.
That is the most important thing. You can never stop hiring. I talked about that 6-chair salon owner when they lose somebody. You always have to be trying to develop new talent, because when you do that, you start to build culture. And you said the bench. I used to have that bench because what you want is a group of people that understand the values of your business and are also empowered to take your business to the next level. I have so many of my employees now are talking to me about things that, prior I used to be so resistant to evolution and change because I thought I knew it all. But your team, they're at the pulse.
Yeah.
And they're so valuable. And if you empower them to have a voice and you empower them to take your business to the next place, they're not always going to have the best suggestions. They're not always going to think, big picture for your business, but I am so much more receptive to conversation, and I'm just so less rigid. And I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned is to be flexible and to be less rigid, because there's some wonderful people who want to help you out there.
That's so good. Yeah, that's picture leadership right there. Just be less rigid. I wanted to talk about two last things. And, it's interesting what you were saying, never stop hiring, always developing new talent. And I find it really interesting, the salon owners that aren't in their local cosmetology schools. It's like, no, that should be like on your calendar every single week. You should be stopping in. And the smartest salon owners that I've seen, Michael, and I'm sure you too, they're always in my school. Always. Yeah. And they're always posting about it. Always, bragging about our future professionals, posting pictures of them. And it's just incredible because they're building this reputation, right, amongst our future professionals. Like, oh my gosh, I want to work for him because he's always in the school. Like, he's just creating so much magic. And I just think that's incredible. But I do want to talk about a couple things. One is, you mentioned that you feel like the independent hairdressing is a cancer in our industry. Let's
that was going to bite me because so many of my friends are own but it's true.
Let's stop on that because, it's interesting. I had one of our salon partners, because we have 3 salons now, we're opening our 4th. And one of our salon partners, she just hit almost a $5,000 week. And, wow. Instead of her like just taking the full credit that she took all of, made that money, she's like, it's my team. I would have never done this if it wasn't for my team. And our leaders and our salons know that it takes a team to hit those type of numbers. They know they're not going to go into an independent box salon and maybe once or twice hit those numbers, but afterwards they're like, I'm out, I'm going to the beach. Yeah. They need that accountability. It's, kind of like going to the gym. You want to be around other people that are working out so that you keep working out. Because, most of the time you're working out at home and you're not working out hard.
You don't stop once you get abs.
That's right.
Right?
Exactly.
You got to keep it up.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Why do you think it's a cancer? And what should salon owners, traditional salon owners, I call them W-2 employee-based salon owners. What should they do to help educate their stylists about this?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of salons that do it really, really well, but usually the ones that do it well have coaching, have mentors, are following a program, because and it's so funny because people think it's new school, but it's actually really old school. Like you talked about with assistants and with a team, with support, the value to that. And this is the thing, is so many commissioned salon owners don't put those things into place. And this is what my whole culture was built on, was developing young talent, having them assist. Like I think Summit Salons does it quite well.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of successful
Yeah.
salons that follow that kind of thing, which is basically, it's just old school. It's a tiered system where you work your way up the ranks and you assist and eventually get your own chair, and then you get busy and then you have your own assistants. And that teaches you something to aspire to. You look in the room and you have goals around you all the time. And you have somebody there making these goals for you. And you understand what, like I've had people who have interviewed, who have, they've talked about the systems in their current salon. And I've said to them, you know what, I don't know if I can offer you that right now because my system doesn't sort of meet that. You're in a great situation. You should stay there. Yeah. Because those people sound like they have their act together. One of the key things we have to teach our staff, it's easy to say the grass isn't greener, but once they go out there, they realize the grass isn't always greener. As far as the independent salon thing goes, because social media is really focusing on independence, and the biggest Instagram hairdressers tend to be independent. These people are not necessarily good business people. They're really successful salon or stylists, and that's wonderful, but they're not necessarily business people. One of the key things that drives me crazy is when I see people on Instagram saying that they're no longer taking new clients or they're closing their books.
I know.
What business in their right mind would... You're insane. There's 100,000 hairdressers who want what you have every single day, and they're going to take it because they're working harder than you. As soon as you rest on your laurels. So, I mean, right off the bat, that's one thing, and I actually talk to people about it. Don't look to independent hairdressers as your inspiration, even if you are already independent. Don't look at those guys. Look at Van Council. And look at what he's doing and say, well, you're a business within a business. All hairdressers are a business within a business, whether they're W-2 or independent.
Right.
And you've got to act like a business person. And like you said, you get to the point that you're like, now I'm going to the beach because I hit my nut. No, you don't do that. You work. You always work. You've got to stay on top. And this is where some people in the independent thing do it well, but in good salon environments where they've got a support system where they allow you to, double book if you'd like to double book, triple book if you'd like to triple book. I used to do that. I personally now prefer to spend more time with a client, but I charge a lot more money.
Right.
Here's one of the things, what ends up happening when you go independent, I see this all the time, people start reducing their pricing.
Yeah.
And it's like, and to touch on Robert again, he had a quote a long time ago that if you take a train off its tracks, it just stops moving. And a good business owner keeps the train moving and keeps that path in front of you. And so many of the independents, they get to a point where they're earning enough and then they rest. It's just like, you go to the gym till you get abs and then you rest.
Yeah.
Here's the reality. You're going to get old.
Yeah.
And eventually you're going to be a 60-year-old independent hairdresser where you're not young and cool anymore. And your clientele is old with you, and you have not set yourself up to be a successful older hairdresser in a salon company. You go into Van Michael salons and you're going to see hairdressers that have been there for 30 years that know that they're going to get old at some point. They've got pensions. They've got these things that are in place for life, because that's what's going to happen eventually. We kind of forget that, what's it going to look like when I'm 50 or 60? And if you can now be charging, $250 for a haircut and having assistants doing all that backbreaking work, and also having the salon financing those assistants for you so that you can enjoy life a little bit and take the vacations you want to take and also enjoy your weekends. And because you're going to we all kind of follow this path. If you go independent, it's one of these things that nobody talks about, but when you talk to the old independent hairdressers, they're struggling too. And I kind of think when you have this support system in place, it's everything. When you can mentor, it keeps you on your toes. There's so many things that are so valuable about sharing, about passing down, and those things don't necessarily happen where everybody is a me attitude. I really think I understand the appeal of it. I do. And I think as a business owner, it's crucial that you can bridge that gap between, as I said earlier, allowing people to lead the life that they want to lead, like finding out what it is they want and helping them get there and earn, so that they can support that lifestyle, finding that happy medium that makes sense for you, for your culture. I love it. I have somebody on my team that she works crazy weird hours, and she writes me all the time and says, can I change my schedule to this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I want you to love your life. I never want to put barriers in front of you. You have worked your butt off to get to this level, and now let's help you get to the next level and also allow you that flexibility. Let me help you kind of get there. Because the people have options. They can leave.
Yeah.
They can go elsewhere, and we have to pivot a little bit. So it's a hard time for a salon owner right now. Social media has changed everything. I loved that I had this little cult that people didn't know what was going on out there. I kept them very insular, and we were a bit of a gang. And back in the day, you could have a gang.
Yeah.
And I said this on a previous interview, like you want a gang in your business, but now people are associating with other gangs, and that's not necessarily the best thing for your business. So you've got to keep them interested in your gang.
Amen. Wow. Okay, this is so powerful. I know everyone is enjoying this that's on here live, and of course, everyone listening to this recording. But one last piece of advice, and by the way, you've got to go to michaellevinehair.com. He's incredible, as you can see. So thank you for giving of your time and your information, your brilliance. You're just awesome. One last piece of advice that you would give people to fix their leadership as they move forward in this incredible industry.
I think if things are struggling, I think you first have to look inward. I think it's so crucial to look in the mirror and really, really say, I'm not doing enough. I need to do more. And the best thing that you can do for me is talk to your team. Sit down, have one-on-ones, have a meeting with your team as a group, allow them freedom to say whatever they want, and take it, and don't get defensive, and realize that you wouldn't be in this position if you didn't need help. And the fact that you have people working for you, they want they're there, they're loyal, when I had my big walkouts, the 5 or 6 key people that stayed in the room, those people want you to succeed. Those people they could leave too. They could have gone, but they stayed with you. You've got to look at the people in the room with you and empower them to help take your business to the next level. They want to do that. That's why they're there. Amen. They want leadership from you, but you also have to empower them. And I just think that that's the most important thing is, okay, you're jaded, you're upset, maybe maybe you're a little bit bitter. Get rid of that. Look in the mirror and say, okay, am I the type of person who I would follow? And do I have the right to lead? And if you don't, you have to fix that. And that can come from coaching. That can just come from listening to, Tony Robbins or whatever it is that you need to do to be more present in your business and be more giving emotionally. You can never stop giving. You'll get your heart broken. It's going to happen. Good people that you love are going to leave you. And you have to just say, it's okay. You've got to have people on the bench. You've got to have, you have to, like, this is what I have learned now. I've had so much heartbreak over the years that I'm like, you know what? I don't get upset anymore. I've just keep toiling. There was a long time that I was like, I don't want to give anymore. You can never stop giving. You have to keep giving, but maybe your giving was maybe a bit misguided. Maybe you were overthinking that you weren't giving in the right way. Find out what your people need, what they want. There was a long time I had a salon, and I could talk about this forever, which I will if you let me, so cut me off. But I had a salon, one of my salons that I closed, it was profitable, but I had lost the team. I had lost faith in the team, and they no longer saw me as a leader. And I tried for a year. I went back in there and I tried to regain their trust, and I couldn't. They were lost to me, and it was my fault. It was 100% my fault. You've got to be present in there, right? You've got to support these guys. You can't kind of neglect your team. They're everything. 100% of your energy has to be helping your team achieve their dreams within your business.
100% of your energy. Wow. We're dream makers. We get
Yes.
how people's dreams come true. This is so big, Michael. I love you so much. We have to have you back on for sure. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I've been so quiet for so long, and you just totally let me ramble. It was wonderful.
Oh, I love it. You were amazing. This was so good. Everybody's going nuts on the chat box. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Take care,
Thank you.
Michael. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.